Hey everyone, ready to dive into some awesome tips for better conversations. We're tackling small talk in English today.
Ooh, small talk.
Yeah.
I know, sometimes it gets a bad rap,
Right, like it's a waste of time.
but it's so important. Think of it as like the first step to building a connection.
The warm-up act before the main event.
Exactly. And we've got a great guide to help us out today. It's called Mastering Small Talk in English.
Perfect. So before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's define things. What exactly is small talk?
Well, the guide makes it clear. It's light, it's informal.
Casual, everyday stuff.
Exactly. Not like diving into super deep topics right away.
Gotcha. So no debating politics with someone you just met.
Yeah, maybe save that for later.
Ha, good point.
Hmm.
Okay, so we know what small talk isn't tea, but where do we even begin a conversation? Any go-to topic?
Oh, absolutely. The guide calls them anchors, those trusty conversation starters. And the
Yeah.
first one, a classic, the weather.
The weather. I mean, it's universal, but can be a bit boring.
True, but there's a reason it works. It's something everyone experiences. Creates a sense of, hey, we're in this together.
Makes sense. Plus, it's easy to build from there.
Right, like, looks like rain later, or how about this heat? It's an opening.
Okay, weather, check. What other anchors does the guide recommend?
Here's one that's super relevant, especially in professional settings, work or school.
Oh, yeah. Makes sense. You're already in that shared context.
Exactly. Even casually, what do you do can spark a great conversation. Gives you insight into their world.
True, true. So, weather, work, school, what else?
Well, what makes you unique? Your hobbies. Time to let your personality shine.
I like that. People love talking about what they're passionate about.
Totally. The guide suggests phrases like, what do you like to do in your free time? Or any hobbies you're into.
Yeah.
Shows you're genuinely curious.
Awesome. Okay. Weather, work, school, hobbies. There's got to be one more.
You got it. Current events.
Yeah.
But remember, keep it light. Avoid those controversial topics.
Yeah, starting a debate probably isn't the goal here.
Right. Think, have you been following the World Cup? Something fun and relatable.
Perfect. Okay, so now we've got our conversation starters. But how do we keep things flowing? Avoid those awkward silences.
This is where active listening comes in. It's not just waiting for your turn to talk.
It's about actually being present,
Right.
engaged.
Yes. And the guide emphasizes open-ended questions, those that can't be answered with just a yes or no.
Oh, right. I've heard of those, but can you give me an example?
Instead of, did you have a good weekend, which is kind of closed off, try, what did you do this weekend?
Ooh, I see. It invites them to tell a story.
Exactly. Or with weather, instead of, is the weather nice?
Yeah.
Try, how are you liking the weather today? More personal.
I'm starting to see how those subtle shifts can make a big difference.
For sure. And the more you practice, the more natural it becomes.
Yeah.
Trust me.
It's really interesting how even small changes to how we phrase things can make such a big difference.
Oh, totally. It's not just the words we use, though.
What else is there?
Nonverbal communication. The guy talks about that, too, like your body language.
Yeah, like if you're slouching and looking bored, probably not going to make the other person feel great.
Exactly. Eye contact is huge.
Right, shows you're actually listening.
And a warm, friendly vibe.
Yeah.
Smiling, nodding,
Yeah.
things like that. Makes people feel comfortable.
So basically, don't just stand there like a robot asking your open-ended questions.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And tone of voice, too.
Oh, for sure. Like, if you sound monotone, even the most exciting topic will sound dull.
You want that enthusiasm to be contagious, you know? Even when you're talking about something simple like the weather.
Speaking of weather, we talked about it as a starter, but how do we go beyond just, nice day, huh?
Well, think back to those open-ended questions. Instead of, it's hot, try, how are you handling this heat?
I see. You're drawing them out, getting their perspective.
Yep. And you can do that with other things, too. Instead of, oh, you're reading, try, what are you reading? Anything good?
Show you actually care.
Exactly. But what if you're putting in all this effort and they just give you one-word answers?
Ugh, the worst. It's like trying to pull teeth.
I know, it can be discouraging. But remember, not everyone is a chatty Cathy.
Some people are just more reserved.
Right. Give them time to respond. Don't jump in right away.
Yeah, sometimes it takes people a minute to think.
And if they're still hesitant, you can try giving them a little more to work with, like share a related story of your own.
Oh, like, I tried that new restaurant this weekend. Have you been?
Exactly. Give them something to connect with. But sometimes a short conversation is just that. No need to force it.
Yeah, true. Sometimes just a little acknowledgement is enough.
Totally. Okay, but then how do you know when it's time to wrap things up? I always feel awkward about that.
Yeah, like, am I overstaying my welcome?
Social cues.
Mhm.
The guide talks about that too. Pay attention to the other person's body language.
Like, if they keep checking their watch, probably a good sign they need to move on.
Or if they're giving you short answers, closed body language,
Wow.
not making eye contact.
Okay, so basically, if they seem checked out, take the hint.
Yep. And that's where those graceful exit phrases we talked about come in. It was nice talking to you, or, I'll let you get back to it.
Polite ways to end things without it being weird.
Exactly. It's all about being respectful of their time.
And speaking of respect, we touched on cultural differences earlier. How much do those really matter in small talk?
A lot. What's considered normal in one culture might be totally different in another.
I've definitely had some awkward moments when traveling, not knowing the customs.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. The guide really stresses doing your research beforehand. Like, what are the typical greetings? Any taboo topics?
Oh, that's a good one. You don't want to accidentally offend someone.
Right. Even things like how much eye contact is appropriate can be different.
So basically, be observant, be respectful, and don't assume everyone follows the same rules.
Exactly. It's about being open to learning and adapting to different communication styles.
Makes small talk seem a lot more complex than I thought.
In a good way, though, right?
Yes,
It's about being aware and considerate.
Totally. And maybe even having some fun with it, embracing those differences.
That's the spirit. Sometimes the most unexpected conversations turn out to be the most memorable.
I love that. Okay, so we've talked about starting conversations, keeping them going, wrapping them up, cultural differences.
It's a lot, but it all comes down to active listening and genuine connection, right?
Totally. But what about when you feel nervous or anxious about talking to someone new?
Well, the guide has some great advice for that, too. Want to dive into that?
I think for a lot of people, the idea of prepping for small talk sounds kind of weird.
I know, right? But hear me out.
Okay, I'm listening.
So think about it like this. Even athletes, they don't just jump into a game without warming up first.
Right, they got to stretch, get those muscles ready.
Exactly. And the guide suggests doing something similar for small talk.
So like, what, mental stretches?
Kinda. Think about those anchor topics we discussed. Which ones feel most natural for you to talk about?
Okay, so like having a few go-to topics in my back pocket.
Exactly. It's not about memorizing a script, but having a starting point.
So you don't go totally blank when you meet someone new.
Right. And then from there, you can just let the conversation flow organically.
Follow their lead, see where it goes.
Exactly. And of course, keep practicing those active listening skills, asking questions, showing you're engaged.
Because even with a great topic, if you're not really listening, it won't go anywhere.
Totally. It's all about that connection, that back and forth. And, the guide actually suggests something pretty interesting for getting better at small talk.
Okay, what's that?
Mindfulness.
Wait, mindfulness, like meditation and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It might seem a bit out there, but think about it. Mindfulness is about being present, noticing details.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Right. And those are the same skills you need for good conversations. Being aware of your surroundings, the people around you.
Noticing those little opportunities to connect.
Exactly. So it's not just about techniques. It's about cultivating that mindset of openness and curiosity.
That's really interesting. I never thought about it that way.
And the more you practice all of this, the more confident you'll become.
Because I think that's the biggest hurdle for a lot of people, right? That fear of messing up or saying the wrong thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Everyone feels that way sometimes. It's totally normal.
But this guide makes it clear, small talk is a skill. And like any skill, you can get better with practice.
Exactly. So don't be afraid to try things out, even if you feel a little awkward at first.
It's all part of the learning process.
Exactly. And remember, even small interactions can have a ripple effect. You never know how a simple conversation might brighten someone's day.
That's a great point. It's like we're all connected, even in those little moments.
Totally. So
Yeah.
go out there, start those conversations. You got this.
Thanks so much for all the great tips today. This deep dive has been so insightful.
My pleasure. It's been fun chatting about this.
And for everyone listening, remember, small talk doesn't have to be scary. It can be fun, it can be rewarding, and it can open up a whole world of connections.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So go out there and spark some conversations. You might be surprised by what you discover.